It often starts so quietly that you don't even notice it happening. You smile a little wider, speak a little softer, and begin to measure your words before they leave your mouth. At first, it feels harmless, just being considerate, just avoiding conflict. But somewhere along the way, being agreeable turns into a habit, and the habit becomes your second skin. You tell yourself it's kindness, empathy, or maturity, but deep down, it's fear. Fear of losing people. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being alone in a world that rewards compliance over truth. You learn early that approval is a kind of currency. Maybe it began in childhood, when a good grade or a polite answer earned a smile. You noticed how adults seemed lighter around you when you were easy to handle. So, you made yourself easier. You tucked away the messy parts, the loud opinions, the strange curiosities. You became the child that didn't cause trouble, the friend who always listened, the one who said it's fine, even when it wasn't. Over time, you build an identity out of politeness. And it works, at least for a while. People like you. They trust you. They call you dependable, mature, kind. You feel proud of that image, but also tired because maintaining it demands endless energy. Every room you enter becomes a quiet performance. You scan faces, read tones, anticipate needs before anyone speaks. You shape-shift into whatever version of yourself will make others most comfortable. The applause you crave is silent, a nod of approval, a lack of disappointment. And yet, when you're alone, something inside feels hollow. That hollow feeling is the cost of your smile. It grows each time you say yes when your heart says no, each time you laugh at a joke that wounds you, each time you dim your light, so someone else won't feel overshadowed. You call it peacekeeping, but it's really self-abandonment disguised as virtue. You keep everyone else calm while chaos builds quietly inside you. You want to rest, but rest feels impossible when your worth depends on constant effort. Sometimes you look in a mirror and barely recognize the face staring back. It's pleasant, practiced, socially perfect, but not alive. You remember fragments of who you used to be, the version that spoke freely, that didn't analyze every word, that didn't live for reassurance. You miss that person, but finding them feels dangerous now. Too many people depend on your niceness. Too many relationships are built on your silence. Still, late at night, the questions come. Who would you be if you stopped performing? Would the people around you still stay if you stopped managing their comfort? You imagine saying no to something trivial and feel the sharp pull of guilt, as if you've committed a sin. That guilt isn't moral, it's conditioned. You learn to equate disagreement with rejection. Somewhere deep down, your nervous system believes that love must be earned through harmony. So, you keep the harmony alive, even when it's built on dishonesty. The tragedy of trying to please everyone is that you disappear in the process. You become a ghost in your own life, visible but not seen, useful but not known. The world praises your goodness but never asks what it costs. You attend conversations like an echo, responding in ways that maintain balance but never reveal depth. You laugh in the right places, nod at the right times, and say, "I understand," even when you don't. The world keeps moving, satisfied with your compliance. Only you notice the growing ache beneath your ribs. Sometimes you justify it. You tell yourself that being easy to love is better than being misunderstood. But misunderstanding is inevitable, and by avoiding it, you also avoid truth. You can't be loved for who you are if you never show who you are. And yet, every attempt to be honest feels like stepping into cold water. Shocking, vulnerable, too exposed. It's easier to stay warm inside the mask of approval, even if it's suffocating. The strangest part is how invisible the pain becomes. No one sees the exhaustion of constantly bending yourself to fit others' shapes. They only see your reliability. They call you selfless, unaware that yourself is exactly what you've lost. You begin to envy those who don't care what others think, those who can speak without trembling, walk away without guilt. You mistake their boundaries for cruelty because you've been taught that kindness means always staying, always giving, always agreeing. But there comes a quiet moment when something inside shifts. It's not rebellion or anger, it's realization. You start to notice the imbalance, the silent trade you've made for peace. You begin to understand that the comfort you give others often comes at the cost of your own. You start seeing your constant yes not as generosity, but as fear wearing a polite disguise. And that awareness, though small, is powerful. It's the first crack in the armor. The truth is, you were never meant to live as everyone's version of good. You were meant to live as your own version of real. Yet realness has consequences. It invites misunderstanding, disagreement, even rejection, but also invites freedom. To please everyone is to betray yourself 1,000 times. To please no one, including yourself, is despair. But to please the truth, that's where peace begins. As the thought settles, you feel something unfamiliar: space. The kind that isn't filled with other people's expectations. It's empty, uncertain, but it's yours. For the first time, you stop adjusting your reflection and simply look. You realize that beneath all the practice, gestures, and perfect responses, there's a person who has been waiting patiently, someone tired of earning permission to exist. That realization doesn't fix everything, but it opens a door. And maybe that's where the story truly begins. Not in the endless effort to be loved, but in the quiet decision to be known. To choose honesty over harmony. To let go of the performance, even if the applause stops. Because only when you remove the mask can you finally breathe without fear. There's a strange kind of pressure that lives in silence. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It simply hums beneath every decision you make, reminding you that someone somewhere expects something from you. You wake up already carrying it. The need to not disappoint, to stay agreeable, to maintain the image others have built around you. It's an invisible weight, but it shapes everything. How you speak, how you move, even how you think. You begin to measure your worth not by who you are, but by how well you meet expectations you never agreed to carry. Every conversation feels like a stage performance. You can sense when someone's approval fades, even slightly, and that flicker in their eyes sends your stomach into a quiet panic. You try to recover quickly. Smile, laugh, soften your tone. You become a mirror for their moods, adjusting constantly to keep the balance. It's exhausting, but you convince yourself it's necessary. You tell yourself it's better to be liked than to cause waves. But deep down, you feel like a puppet whose strings are being pulled by invisible hands. You start to fear disappointment more than failure. Failure feels external, something you can fix. Disappointment feels personal, like a verdict on your worth. You can't bear the thought of someone thinking less of you, so you overcompensate. You work harder, say yes faster, listen longer. You try to be everything to everyone, and in doing so, you lose the quiet rhythm of your own needs. You stop asking what you want because you've been too busy guessing what others expect. Approval becomes oxygen. Without it, you feel suffocated. A single frown, a short reply, an unanswered message can spiral you into self-doubt. You start analyzing moments long after they're over, replaying words, tone, timing, searching for where you went wrong. It's not logic that drives you. It's fear. Fear of being seen as less. Fear of being excluded from the warmth of belonging. Each attempt to win back approval feels like inhaling after drowning, but the relief never lasts. You keep needing more. Harmony becomes your goal, but it's a fragile one. You keep the peace even when you disagree. You smooth over tension even when it burns inside you. You think you're preventing conflict, but you're only postponing it, trading external calm for internal chaos. You begin to realize that your silence doesn't prevent storms. It just ensures they'll happen inside you instead of around you. And every storm you swallow leaves a mark, a quiet resentment that no one else can see. You carry an invisible checklist in your mind. It updates constantly, filled with invisible rules. Don't upset them, don't talk too much, don't seem distant, don't say no. You measure yourself by these invisible standards, never questioning who wrote them. They guide every interaction, every choice. You're not just living your life. You're managing everyone else's perception of it. It's a full-time job with no rest days. And yet, when you finally lie down at night, there's no peace. just the echo of every moment you failed to live up to your own impossible list. Over time, the constant adjusting drains you. You wake up already tired, not from work, but from the emotional balancing act you perform every day. You overthink before speaking, then overthink after speaking. You apologize too much, even when you've done nothing wrong. You smile when you want to cry, laugh when you feel small, agree when you want to scream. This exhaustion isn't physical, it's spiritual. It's what happens when your soul is constantly negotiating its right to exist freely. Guilt becomes your compass. You navigate life by avoiding it, steering yourself toward whatever decision feels least guilty, not most true. You say yes to favors you don't want to do. You comfort people who've hurt you. You swallow anger because expressing it would make you difficult. You confuse guilt with goodness, as if the more you suffer quietly, the more moral you become. But guilt isn't guidance. It's a ghost from the past, whispering lies that keep you small. The worst part is that people start to depend on this version of you. They know you'll always say yes, always be understanding, always put them first. You become the reliable one, the peacemaker, the emotional anchor. And while part of you takes pride in that role, another part feels trapped. Because if you ever stop, even for a moment, the people around you might start to question what changed. They might say, "You're not like you used to be." But the truth is, you're not supposed to stay the same forever, especially when that version of you is built from fear. There are moments when the performance cracks. Maybe it's a small thing, a task you can't complete, a friend you disappoint, a silence you can't fill. Suddenly, the mask slips. You see the confusion or disappointment in someone's face, and it feels unbearable. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and you scramble to fix it. You can't stand being the reason for someone else's discomfort. But what about yours? How many times have you sacrificed your own comfort just to keep someone else from feeling awkward for 5 seconds? You begin to realize how much of your life has been lived reacting to others instead of acting for yourself. Every choice filtered through an invisible audience. What will they think? Will this upset them? Will they still like me? You've mistaken constant adaptation for connection, but true connection doesn't require performance. It requires truth. And truth, no matter how gently spoken, can't exist where fear rules. When you finally reach the point of emotional exhaustion, it doesn't come with drama or noise. It's quiet, like a soft collapse. You sit there, unable to please anyone anymore, and instead of panic, you feel something else, relief. Because in that moment, there's nothing left to maintain. The stage lights dim, the audience disappears, and all that's left is you. Not the performer, not the caretaker, not the peacekeeper, just the person beneath it all. You feel weak, but strangely free. The weight of invisible expectations doesn't fall off all at once. It lingers like phantom pressure after a heavy load is lifted. But little by little, you begin to see it for what it was. Not love, not loyalty, just fear disguised as responsibility. And in that awareness, something changes. You realize that people's expectations will never end, but your obligation to meet them can. The freedom you've been chasing isn't found in their approval. It begins the moment you stop needing it. There comes a time when you start to see the pattern clearly. Every smile, every carefully chosen word, every small sacrifice, each one was a quiet payment toward the same goal, being liked. You thought it was harmless, even noble. But now, standing in the ruins of your own energy, you start to understand that being liked has a cost. Not a visible one, like money or time, but something deeper. The cost is yourself. Every moment spent trying to be acceptable to others chips away at your sense of who you are. And when you've given away enough pieces, there's almost nothing left to recognize. You don't realize it first because the rewards come quickly. People praise you for your patience, your kindness, your dependability. They call you so easy to be around, and each compliment feels like sunlight. You grow addicted to it. The more approval you receive, the more you crave it. But beneath the surface, you begin to notice something unsettling. The praise feels good for only a moment, and then it fades, leaving behind a hollow space that begs to be filled again. You start chasing approval like a drug, never realizing how much of yourself you're spending to keep it coming. There's a hidden debt that builds up over time. You give and give, hoping one day someone will notice your effort and repay it with love, care, or understanding. But that repayment rarely comes. People get used to your giving. They don't see the effort anymore. It becomes expected. You start to feel invisible in the very relationships you've worked so hard to maintain. And the irony is cruel. The more you try to be liked, the less you're truly seen. Silence becomes your safety net. When you don't speak your truth, you can't be criticized. You convince yourself that peace is worth the silence, that honesty would only make things worse. So you swallow your opinions, your pain, your boundaries. You begin to live in half versions of yourself, present but muted, visible but voiceless. You tell yourself you're being kind, but deep down, you know it's fear. Fear that if you finally said what you really think, the people who like you might stop. The problem with performing kindness is that it breeds counterfeit connection. You end up surrounded by people who love the version of you that serves them, not the one that is real. You can't blame them completely. They don't know the truth because you've never shown it. You keep thinking that love built on performance is better than no love at all. But love that requires you to disappear isn't love, it's dependence. You start to see that your relationships are fragile, held together not by truth, but by your willingness to stay small. Your boundaries start to dissolve without you noticing. You agree to things you don't want, stay in conversations that drain you, show up for people who wouldn't do the same. You begin to live for the comfort of others at the expense of your own. Every yes that violates your peace is a small betrayal of yourself. You think saying no will make you selfish, but the real selfishness is expecting someone to constantly sacrifice their truth just to be accepted. And then comes the anger, the kind that has nowhere to go. It builds quietly in your chest, disguised as exhaustion. You tell people you're fine, but your body knows otherwise. The tension in your shoulders, the heaviness in your stomach, the tightness in your breath. They're all signs of suppressed emotion. You've spent so long avoiding conflict that you've become the battlefield yourself. The war never ends because it's happening inside you. One day you find yourself in a moment of praise, a compliment, a thank you, and instead of joy, you feel nothing. The validation that once kept you alive now feels empty. You smile politely, but inside, something shifts. You realize that approval no longer feeds you because it was never real nourishment. It was sugar for the soul, a temporary sweetness that leaves you weaker every time. You wonder how long you've been mistaking external validation for genuine worth. Loneliness begins to creep in, even when you're surrounded by people. It's a strange kind of loneliness, one that comes not from isolation, but from invisibility. You're in a room full of people who adore you, yet none of them truly know you. They like the calm, agreeable version of you, the one who never says no, never causes trouble. But no one knows what makes you angry, what excites you, what scares you. You've become a stranger to your own life, performing in scenes you no longer believe in. The more you try to maintain the image, the further you drift from your own instincts. You start second-guessing everything, your choices, your preferences, even your emotions. You wait for others to tell you what's right, what's okay, what's acceptable. You've lost trust in your own compass. The silence between approval and rejection becomes unbearable, so you fill it with more effort, more giving, more pretending. But the more you give, the less you feel alive. Eventually, the breaking point arrives. It doesn't look dramatic, it's quiet, almost peaceful. You wake up one morning and realize you're tired in a way that sleep can't fix. You don't want to answer another message, meet another expectation, or smile through another conversation that feels fake. You realize that your constant effort to be liked has made you vanish. And in that realization, something inside whispers, enough. It's not loud, but it's powerful. It's the first time your soul speaks louder than your fear. You begin to see how much you've given to earn something that was never guaranteed. You start to question what kind of love requires you to be anyone other than yourself. You wonder what it would feel like to live without the constant chase, to simply exist unfiltered, unpolished, unliked if necessary. And though the thought scares you, it also feels like freedom. The cost of being liked is that you trade authenticity for acceptance. You trade peace for performance. You trade yourself for safety. And in the end, all that's left is the haunting realization that you were never truly liked. You were just tolerated for being convenient. But even that truth, painful as it is, brings clarity. Because once you see the cost, you can no longer keep paying it. You start to crave honesty more than approval, peace more than validation. The world doesn't need another agreeable person. It needs someone willing to be real. You can feel that person stirring inside you, waiting for permission to breathe. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone says, "You're so easy to like," you'll smile and think to yourself, "I'm finally learning to like me too." It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a faint shift in the air. After years of bending, adjusting, and softening yourself to fit into everyone else's comfort, something deep inside you begins to resist. It's not dramatic at first, just small moments of fatigue, a growing disinterest in pretending, a sigh you can no longer hide. You catch yourself hesitating before saying yes, wondering for the first time what would happen if you didn't. The thought of saying no feels dangerous, but also exhilarating. It's a flicker of rebellion in a soul that's been too obedient for too long. When you finally say no, it's almost trembling. The word feels foreign in your mouth, heavy with guilt and unfamiliar power. You expect the world to collapse, the disapproval, the confusion, the questions. And maybe it does a little. Some people look at you differently, surprised that you've stopped being the person who always agrees. But amidst the discomfort, there's a quiet sense of relief, like you've finally exhaled after years of holding your breath. That small moment of defiance feels like truth returning to your body. But truth doesn't come without consequences. The silence that follows your first act of honesty can feel unbearable. People who once adored you may pull away, not out of malice, but confusion. You've changed the unspoken rules, and it unsettles them. You feel the temptation to apologize, to take it back, to slip into the familiar mask of harmony. Yet, something inside you knows that if you surrender again, you'll lose yourself completely. The silence, though uncomfortable, is sacred. It's the sound of space forming around your authenticity. Guilt arrives soon after. It seeps in like smoke, whispering that you've become selfish, unkind, cold. You mistake the discomfort of growth for wrongdoing. Every time you put your needs first, guilt tightens its grip, trying to drag you back to the old pattern. But this guilt isn't truth, it's withdrawal. You're detoxing from approval, learning how to exist without the constant validation that once defined your worth. It's painful, yes, but also proof that something inside you is healing. The process feels messy. Some days you're proud of your boundaries. Other days you want to rip them down just to make things easier. You question yourself constantly. Are you being strong or just difficult? Are you protecting your peace or pushing people away? But the longer you sit with the discomfort, the more you realize that boundaries aren't walls, they're mirrors. They reflect who's willing to meet you with respect and who only loved your compliance. The ones who truly care will adjust. The ones who don't will leave, and though it hurts, their absence creates room for something real. Slowly your voice returns, not the polite version, not the filtered one, but the one that hesitates, cracks, and still speaks anyway. You begin to express opinions without rehearsing them first. You say what you mean, not what will make others comfortable. You laugh louder, frown deeper, feel more alive. It's strange, almost overwhelming, to realize how long you've silenced yourself. Now, every word feels like reclaiming a small piece of who you used to be before fear took over. Honesty becomes a form of healing. You start to tell the truth, not to hurt others, but to stop hurting yourself. It's not about confrontation, it's about clarity. You learn that being honest doesn't make you cruel, it makes you clean. There's relief in saying what's real, even when it shakes the ground beneath you. You stop editing your emotions to fit someone else's comfort. You stop apologizing for existing as you are. And slowly, the fear of disapproval fades into something softer, acceptance. As you change, your world begins to shrink. Not everyone stays. Some friendships fade, some relationships cool. The circle that once surrounded you tightens, but it also deepens. The few who remain don't love you because you please them. They love you because you're honest, even when it's inconvenient. You start having quieter, deeper conversations, ones that don't require you to perform. The noise of constant approval fades into the calm of mutual respect. It's smaller, yes, but it's real, and it nourishes you in a way validation never could. With each honest decision, your confidence grows, not the loud, boastful kind, but the gentle assurance that comes from self-trust. You no longer look to others for permission to feel what you feel. You trust your boundaries, your instincts, your intuition. You begin to understand that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of alignment. You realize that true self-respect doesn't require an audience. It's quiet, internal, and deeply grounding. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to stop abandoning yourself. Then comes the moment that feels like freedom. It's not grand or cinematic. It's an ordinary day when you notice you're not performing anymore. You say what you mean, you rest when you're tired, you decline what doesn't feel right, and the world doesn't end. The sun still rises. The people who matter still stay. And for the first time, your reflection feels honest. You see your own eyes, not the practiced smile that used to hide behind them. You feel the weight that's lifted, not because others change, but because you finally stopped betraying yourself to earn their approval. Authenticity isn't rebellion against others. It's rebellion against your own fear. It's the decision to stop living like a translation of other people's expectations. It's daring to be unedited, unpolished, imperfect, and still enough. You realize that the peace you've been chasing through endless pleasing was never out there. It's what happens when you're inside and outside finally match. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're simply being. The guilt fades, replaced by a soft pride. You've learned that saying no doesn't make you unkind, that honesty doesn't destroy relationships, it filters them. You've discovered that the world doesn't collapse when you stop performing. It just becomes quieter, truer, and infinitely more peaceful. The rebellion of authenticity isn't loud or dramatic. It's the stillness that comes when you finally stop running from yourself. There comes a time when you get tired of trying to be understood. It doesn't happen dramatically. There's no explosion, no loud realization. It's quiet. One day, you simply stop explaining yourself. You stop overthinking every word, stop analyzing every silence. You stop bending to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. It feels strange at first, almost like loss, but slowly it begins to feel like freedom. You start realizing that peace isn't found in convincing others to see you clearly. It's found in not needing their approval at all. At first, letting go feels heavy. Your heart fights it, your mind resists. You've spent so long trying to make things right, trying to fix relationships, control outcomes, and prove your worth. Letting go feels like surrendering, like losing control. But then, slowly, it starts to make sense. You begin to see that holding on doesn't preserve anything. It only keeps your hands too full to receive what's next. You can't heal if you're still clinging to what broke you. You can't move forward while your heart is anchored in the past. There's grief in releasing what once mattered. The people you cared for, the roles you played, the expectations you try to meet, all of it leave a mark. But that grief is sacred. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The pain doesn't mean you're breaking. It means you're clearing room. You start noticing how much peace begins to settle in the spaces where chaos used to live. The silence that once scared you becomes a comfort. You realize that peace was never about things being perfect. It was about things being honest. When you let go, you begin to see how much energy you used to waste on things beyond your control. The opinions of others, the need to be liked, the urge to fix what isn't yours to fix, it all fades in importance. You start valuing your energy more carefully. You no longer chase validation because you've seen how exhausting that race can be. You learn that not everyone is meant to stay. Not every story needs closure, and not every misunderstanding deserves to be corrected. Some things are better left as they are. Some people are meant to remain lessons. As you loosen your grip, something beautiful happens. You become softer, not harder. Letting go doesn't make you cold or indifferent. It makes you peaceful. You stop reacting to everything. You stop taking things so personally. You begin to understand that what people say or do is often a reflection of their own battles, not your worth. This realization doesn't make the world easier, but it makes you stronger. You start responding instead of reacting. You move slower, speak less, listen more. You begin to trust silence as much as you once trusted noise. The more you let go, the clearer life becomes. You start to notice the small, simple joys that were always there but buried under the noise of striving. The way sunlight falls through your window, the sound of rain at night, the peace of a quiet morning with no obligations. You begin to appreciate these moments, not as distractions from life, but as life itself. You realize that happiness doesn't need to be loud or grand. Sometimes it's just the absence of conflict, the calm in your own breath, the ease of being enough as you are. Forgiveness becomes part of this process too. You stop holding grudges against others, and more importantly, against yourself. You forgive yourself for staying too long, for giving too much, for not knowing better. You forgive your younger self for confusing love with approval, for mistaking attention for care. Forgiveness doesn't mean you justify what happened. It means you free yourself from it. You begin to understand that your peace is too precious to be held hostage by resentment. Eventually, you find yourself at peace with not knowing everything. You stop forcing answers. You stop chasing explanations. You start trusting that what's meant for you won't need to be begged for. There's power in that kind of trust, the quiet assurance that you can let life unfold without losing yourself in it. You begin to see uncertainty not as danger, but as possibility. You let things come and go naturally like tides. You no longer cling. You flow. And in that flow, you realize that letting go isn't about losing. It's about returning. Returning to the simplicity you once had before the world told you who to be. Returning to your own rhythm. Returning to the version of yourself that knows peace isn't earned, it's allowed. You no longer need constant validation or control. You simply breathe, exist, and let things be. And in that quiet, unforced existence, you find something you didn't expect. You find yourself again.